I think it's terribly important that we continue to fight for and protect religious freedoms and religious faith in this country and not fall victim to this threat to democracy that's presented by Christian nationalism and those who are Christian nationalist adjacent and see it as a way to lead us into an authoritarian and fascist nation. Because none of us win. Even if you think that, wait, I'm a Christian, I'll be protected. No, you won't be. Because if you open that door, it'll get to the point of what type of Christian are you? And we're already to that point. There's some who are Christian nationalists who would think that I am not a real Christian because I challenge them and their version of Christianity because I believe that in a democratic republic that all voices should be heard, whether you have a faith or whether you're a Christian, whether you're a Muslim, whether you're a Buddhist, whether you're a Zoroastrianist, your voice is just as valid in the public square as my voice is. And that's the way it should be in a healthy and functioning democracy. Certain voices should not be excluded because they are outside the mainstream, because they're not the voices that represent those who have been deemed to be the voices that should be centered in norm. That's not what, if we're true to what America says it is, what America should be. So what's another reason that we have this separation of church and state? Robert Ingersoll, a scholar from the 19th century, a well-known leader of agnosticism, wrote these words as to why the separation of church and state is important. He says that the founders knew that the recognition of a deity would be seized upon by fanatics and zealots as a pretext for destroying the liberty of thought. And we saw this in the aftermath of the unfortunate assassination and murder of Charlie Kirk in late 2025. It was used as a pretext by those who claim to be for freedom of speech to say that they wanted to eliminate a certain subsection of speech based on political views and based on religion. I'm not going to call them zealots and fanatics. Their words speak for themselves. But what I will say is that if your notion of religious freedom only applies to those who look like you and think like you and pray like you and worship like you might be the problem. You might be the folks that Robert Ingersoll was talking about. But it's not my job here at this particular moment to even question your faith, to question whether you truly are living your life as someone called by our Lord Jesus Christ. Because there's this thing called the fruit of the Spirit in Galatians, and associated with that are those indications that what you're doing may come from a wicked tree. So I'm not going to get into that, but I will say, though, that if your faith is threatened by the existence of someone else and their free speech and the exercise of their religious freedoms and the full exercise of their faith and them choosing to worship or not to worship God, that you may have insecurities that you need to address about your faith. You're not secure in your faith. You're not worshiping God in a spirit of truth. You're worshiping God out of fear. And we were told, those of us who are Christians, do not worship out of fear, but we worship in a spirit of truth and glad tidings and joy. Embrace the grace and mercy and salvation that we receive from Jesus Christ. And we fully give that same, and that we freely give that same grace and mercy to others.